Well, the top of the morning to you, and welcome to our 17th annual Bold Predictions Show. This is where we do a little review of the year that's been, talk a little bit about the circumstances that we're in, and then also plan for the future with our best research of what the future holds. Again, we'll be joined today by the Chief Economist for the National Association of Realtors, our great friend, Dr. Yun. It's been a crazy year in a lot of ways, and I'll be candid with you. I'll be happy when this year's over. Looking forward to a new year. And so for the real estate business, with the lawsuits, with the challenges, with what's taken place with the Department of Justice, with the major real estate companies having to surrender 40% of their available cash, it has been a very challenging year. And then on top of that, we've had a very challenging year in and of itself. This would have been a tough real estate year without all the extracurricular activities. And so when you put it together, it's been very challenging. So I looked up the definition of real estate agent the other day, and it's a noun, apparently. Who knew? And it's a full-time psychologist who shows houses every now and then. I kind of like that. I love this little meme my kid said to me: real estate agents right now posting about the drop in mortgage rates while the world's on fire. Or I love this one: when 50% of your industry has left the market, but you're still hanging on. We're all castaway survivors, no doubt. And honestly, to be honest, candid with you, I was just on stage last month in Nashville, and I asked 1,000 of our clients, how many of you have had a really good year? And truthfully, 90% of them raised their hands. So a lot of people are doing well. It's just the market as a whole has been a challenge, and I'll talk to some of those circumstances as well. So I'm going to cover three main points in our bold predictions today. First is we're going to talk about the real estate of real estate. I'm going to talk about forecasting the market with Dr. Yun. And then I'm ultimately going to challenge all of you in preparation for next year on why it's time to be a pro, what needs to be done, and that the only way to move forward in the year to come is to really be at the height of your profession. So, with regards to the real estate, I'm going to quote actually from Dr. Yun's team a lot because he produces this profile of home buyers and home sellers. And there's just nothing else like it in the industry. And we just have such fabulous intel on what's happening in our market. And so let me just share with you, there is a series of records I'm going to show you today that are record highs and record lows. And the biggest thing I can tell you about the real estate market and a little bit of what we forecasted in last year's bold predictions is this: that real estate, as it's being practiced right now, real estate consumers, buyers and sellers, are older and richer than ever before. There has been a great separation. And so the vast majority of buyers, the age has crept up significantly. The number of people who are buying and selling homes who don't have kids in their home, young kids especially, and the amount of money required. Now, everybody knows inflation, things have become more expensive. But you're going to see demographically and systematically how people in the middle are being squeezed out, and more than anything, young people are being squeezed out, which is a great passion of mine. Because I believe young people who have a chance, household formation starts at 26. They're not buying until 38. And the fact of the matter is there's over 62 million people in the United States alone in that group. And many young people are giving up the hope of owning a home. Many people are putting off having a family, having kids, and maybe just think it's just not possible. I'm going to be a renter for life. And I think we'd all agree, and the evidence is indisputable, that a renter nation is not something we want to be. However, to prepare you, we started working on the Do It Now campaign and your marketing campaigns this year. We started utilizing a lot of marketing pieces that were geared towards people who wanted to buy a second home or people who wanted to take equity out to help a younger person. We were dealing with all of this. And so let me kind of show you some of the data so you can be informed. So last year, the median home buyer age in the United States was 49 years old. And this year, that skyrocketed to 56 years of age. That is an all-time high. That is the highest age ever for a median buyer. Like I said, richer and older. First-time buyer age. I don't know about you. When I was 22 years old when I bought my first home. The first-time buyer age has gone from 35 to 38. Now, just a couple of years ago, that was 32. So what's happened is housing is becoming more and more out of reach for younger people. And it is a very, very big deal. In fact, it's going to be a huge impetus of mine next year to reach out to try to teach and help young people to fight, bite, scratch, and claw on how to actually acquire a home. And there's major forces against them, from institutional buyers of homes, big time companies, whether it's BlackRock and 100 others, buying multiple single family homes, to the price of rents, to the shortage of inventory, to the lack of construction, to the what it takes for down payment, to the high interest rates. You put that all together, we've had a tsunami that's really come down on young people. So 73% of all buyers did not have a child under the age of 18 in their home. When I first started practicing real estate in the late 1980s, I'm going to say more than 50% of my clients had young kids. And it was one of the reasons to buy the next home. So 73% of all buyers didn't even have an underage 18 kid in their home, okay? Record share. Next, all cash buyers. Remember I said older and richer? 26% of all transactions were all cash. All cash. So, I mean, just, again, another all-time high. It's a record all-time high. Multi-generational. It's 17% of buyers purchased a multi-generational home. Guess what? Another record. So we're seeing these trends, and this is the way the market is moving, and will continue to move somewhat so in 2025. First-time buyers. Normally about a third of every market since I've been in the real estate business. Last year, 32%. This year, 24% of the market, all-time low. 24% of the market was first-time buyers, okay? On the home search side, the buyers typically viewed 7 homes, and 2 of those homes were viewed only online. So that tells you what you've already known. Another record, the typical age of home sellers was 63 this year. Another record. Okay, that's the oldest group on average to ever put their homes on the market. And of all the homes sold on the market, 77%, almost 8 out of every 10 homes sold, did not have a child under the age of 18 residing in the home. Again, highest share ever recorded. The median number of years the seller owned their home was 10 years. Between 2000 and 2008, that was only 6 years. When I first got in the business, it was every 5 years. So again, these are numbers we're seeing, absolute significant change in the demographics, what's taken place today, and a little bit of what you need to be prepared for and have your marketing aligned for next year. And then last but not least, for sale by owners, with all the technology, with all the lawsuits saying that real estate agents are irrelevant, you don't need a realtor, you have the technology, you don't need to pay the fees, only 6% of all sales were for sale by owners, and that again was an all-time low. Typically that was around 12% of sales, and now it's next to none. For our Canadian friends, I know I have thousands of you tuning in today. Again, you go through the market and you start to have a little, here's your sales over the last number of years, and we've had the peaks and valleys, and starting to peak up here as it gets towards the end of the year. Average home price in Canada, look, here it is since 2005. Up and away, a little bit of a correction there in 2022, bobbing along, and now we're starting to see it go again. Again, on the referral side of things, remember, the fundamentals of the business haven't changed. 66% of sellers used an agent that was referred to them or used an agent that they worked with in the past to buy or sell a home. It's still the vast majority of people. 87% of sellers said they would recommend their agent for future services. Those numbers drop off, obviously, when the agents don't stay in touch. So what have we seen? What have we seen just looking at it there? It's startling. The sellers have gotten older. The buyers have gotten older. Kids inside the house under the age of 18 has become far less significant. It doesn't mean there's not a ton of people in that space who want to make a move. It means they couldn't. So between shortage of inventory, obviously elevated interest rates, these kind of all the other economic forces, both things that were just dealt with in the election, inflation, immigration, that all has huge implications for the housing market. And then we're also dealing with corporate buyers. It's very, very interesting times out there, and we have to make sure we navigate as a business. We need to align our marketing And for me in my house, my passion is definitely going to be to help these younger folks get a home. With that said, we want to talk about how to prepare you for the year ahead and the market ahead. And we're going to bring in our great friend. He's been part of the last 7 years of our bold predictions. He's the chief economist for the National Association of Realtors and a great friend of Buffini Company. We want to welcome to the program Lawrence Yun. Lawrence, thanks for joining us today, all the way from Virginia.
Hello, Brian. Happy to join. So thank you for having me.
Great. Before we move on to some of the questions, obviously a lot of that information I shared with you, you've been observing that. Do you see any changes coming in this older and richer demographic is what's controlling real estate right now?
The market condition was tough last year, high mortgage rates, or at least generational high mortgage rate condition. And then you combine that with the historically low inventory, especially in the first half of the year. So market was essentially frozen. I mean, very good to hear that, your people that you coach, they are doing relatively well. Some are having one of their best years ever. But looking at the broad statistics, it was a very challenging year condition. But I'm sure that in the upcoming years, we're going to see a significant pent-up demand release among younger people who want to realize their American dream. And I think American dream is still that owning part of America.
Yes. Yeah, and it's a passion for you and me. We both talk about our immigrant backgrounds. You from South Korea and me from Ireland, and how, coming to America. And it really makes you feel like, when you buy that first home, you feel like you own a piece of the rock. You know what I mean? It's like it's something. And that's why so many people are starting to think, they're starting to run the record. I'm never going to own a home. I'm never going to have a chance. And on one hand, it is extremely difficult. But the other hand, we're going to help these folks. As we dive into it here, let's talk about the number of transactions that took place in 2025 and your insights. Obviously, like you said, the market was frozen in the first quarter of the year, especially. We both talked about that this time last year. But what were your insights on the total number of transactions and the volume that took place in 2024?
2023, last year, we had 4.1 million home sales. That was the lowest in nearly 30 years. And in 2024, as we are still trying to tally up the final months of the data, it looks to be very similar. Now, the red bar that you see on the screen is essentially realtor sales, while the blue bar is builders. Builders have relatively small market share, but one interesting dynamics is that builders are standing on their feet. They're doing more sales because they can create inventory, they have more inventory choices. So at least builders have little room to market, trying to bring people to look at the home, while the realtors, as they walk in their established neighborhood, they were simply not seeing that for sale sign out there. But good thing, in the second half of 2024, we began to see a turn. Little more inventory, compared to the same time year before. So this is implying that the worst tightness in the inventory is coming to an end. Life-changing events is essentially saying to people, it's time to go to the next home, whether it is due to the job changes, maybe retirement years, maybe, small young family having additional child. So all these factors leading to more inventory. So that will loosen up the market. And definitely next year and beyond, I think there will be increased home sales.
Yeah, there are certain dynamics of real estate. I got one of my sons has 3 kids, and they're 3 boys under the age of 6. And when that third kid arrived, I don't care what the market is, I don't care what the interest rates is. They're like, we need more space, or we're going to lose our mind. You have job transfers. We know there's a whole bunch of people talking about retirement, the silver tsunami, and so on and so forth. So you kind of alluded to it there. What are you seeing with inventory levels? Obviously, it was as tight as I've ever seen it mid-year this year. Homes have started to stay on the market a little bit longer. There's a little bit more release. What are you seeing for the future here with inventory levels?
The most recent available data is showing about 30% higher inventory compared to the same time period year before. So late autumn, early winter, same time period, about 30% more inventory. It was in late summer where we began to see about 5% increase. Then the following month, 10% increase, then 15%. So we are beginning to see more inventory. Now, of course, over the years, because of the lack of home building activity in relation to population, we have seen steady decline in inventory level, then big drop when people say 3% mortgage rate, I'm locked in, I will never give this up. Well, that was the initial sentiment, but now as people are facing life-changing events, new job at different location, having an additional child, or it could be even death in the family, divorces, marriages, some elderly who may pass away, sons and daughters inherit the property. They don't know what to do with it. It's an estate sale inventory coming onto the market. So all these life-changing events are ongoing. And therefore, we are finally seeing a turn in the inventory on the existing home inventory. The builders already had more inventory. They are doing the sales. They're standing on their feet. But now the realtors should anticipate more listings, which automatically means more business opportunity.
Yeah. And I think this time last year, we were really forecasting the fourth quarter of this year would be when things started to open up a little bit. And it has opened up some, but not as much as I was hoping for. But that, like you say, that pent-up demand is here. Death, divorce, babies, jobs, retirement, moving out of state. The bottom line is people need to move. And, one of the stats I saw in a recent presentation of yours, which I thought was brilliant, was just that the U.S. population has grown by 70 million in our census since 1995, and there could be up to another 30 million people off census. And so if you're looking at between 70 to 100 million more people, we cannot stay at the same levels as 1995. It's just basic supply and demand forces the issue. It has to change. People are going to need to move. They're going to need housing. We're not going to go back to 6 and 7 million transactions, but the bottom line is people are just going to have to move. We just have too many people and too many life circumstances. You agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, the chart that you showed shows that the population growth, yet the home sales to be at 1995 level. Well, the common sense says there's a big mismatch, or at least the conditions were difficult. Elevated mortgages, lack of inventory. Well, what are we seeing now? Well, the mortgage rate has not declined so much, but it is better than what it is 1 year ago. 1 year ago at this time, mortgage rate reaching 8%. Now it is slightly under 7%. I think next year it will settle down more closer to 6%. So conditions are developing for more transactions. So we had a couple of years of very depressed, suppressed home sales despite rising population, which means that we will get quite a significant pent-up demand, pent-up seller release in the upcoming years. And Brian, you just mentioned, well, 6 million, we're not going to get there. Well, don't be surprised. Sometimes market can completely surprise. So we were at 4 million. My baseline forecast is that maybe we will get to 5 million in a couple of years. But every time I make projection, somehow the directionally it appears right, but sometimes it's much stronger than what we anticipate. So let's not take the 6 million off the table yet.
Great. From your lips to God's ears, Lawrence, that would be great. We talk about rates. Some of our clients are just confused. The Fed cuts the rates 50 basis points and mortgage interest rates go up. And they're just like, how does this work? And I'd love you to kind of talk people through that a little bit, and then talk to me where you actually think, you mentioned 6%, why you think rates are coming down, and the factors that actually affect the interest rates to come down.
The Federal Reserve controls Fed funds short-term interbanking lending rate, which is that blue line. So blue line gets raised or decreased based on Federal Reserve decision. The top line, orange line, is what the realtors and their consumers care about. which is the 30-year fixed rate mortgage. And as we all know, the mortgage rate have generally trended up when the Fed started to cut interest rate from September. So one immediate conclusion from that is Federal Reserve does not control mortgage rate. So don't try to time the market about when the Fed meeting will be and how the Fed decision will be, because mortgage rate could move in opposite direction. But I do believe the Federal Reserve will cut more rounds of rate cut next year. I think it's just inevitable as inflation further comes down. But the mortgage rate will decline somewhat, but not in a big way. I think the new normal will be 6%, which means a little above 6% or a little less than 6%, but just bouncing along there. And one big reason is that the deficit, national debt, is very, very high. Government borrowing simply means there's less mortgage money out there to be lent out. So we should not expect return to 3%, 4%, or even 5% mortgage rate. If we get 5%, let's all cheer, but even 5% mortgage rate looks to be difficult.
Yeah. So again, the national debt, there's very few people impacted as much as we are. Obviously, people in the car business, people who are dealing with mortgage rates like we are, credit card companies. So that's where the numbers are, and that's where the action is. A lot of people are asking, okay, the new administration's coming in. There's a lot of people are making their forecasts. The stock market's obviously reacted a certain way. What do you think the new administration can do to help the real estate business?
As I mentioned, the deficit being high, which is keeping the mortgage rates a little elevated. So to the degree that new position, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, is there to cut wasteful government spending, and if they can provide a credible plan to reduce the budget deficit, then mortgage rate could actually decline measurably. So that's one way. But the other way is build more home. We need more supply. So if we have more supply, that will keep the housing component of the inflation much calmer, which means that Federal Reserve can make even deeper cuts. And President Trump has made some comment about production, maybe deregulate so the builders can produce more, or even open up some small slice of federal land for home construction. So having more supply would definitely lessen some of the housing cost inflationary pressure, which will permit Federal Reserve to make even deeper rate cuts. And I mentioned that Federal Reserve does not control mortgage rates directly, but indirectly, if the Fed is keep making rate cut, there will be some additional forces to bring mortgage rate a little lower than what I've been projecting on the screen.
So obviously home construction, people coming back into the labor force, those would have a significant impact for sure. And that would help us. As I mentioned, Neal Lawrence, a good friend of mine, Scott Turner, is nominated to be the Secretary for Housing and Urban Development. A great guy. And I plan on taking many a plane flight to D.C. And to be in Scott's ear to do everything we can to get people back in the game, because we know that housing is such a crucial part of the American economy. It's so connected, and we know that people owning a home, it has such a big impact. It impacts the well-being of families, the formation of families. People are putting off having kids. We know it impacts kids' self-esteem, their involvement in the community. It's the 12% higher scores in school. There are over and over again. There's so many statistics that show that owning a home is a great thing for a family. It's a great thing for a community, and more and more people having access to home ownership. It only benefits a culture and a country. So we are going to keep banging that drum. I know you will be too, and we'll do everything we can because. And in the meantime, we have these wonderful army of people who want to serve buyers and sellers. They want to do a great job. The market's been tough. These lawsuits that have come down, you can't speak to it, I can. It has not been good for consumers. It has not been good for realtors. Nobody's benefited, in my opinion, except the lawyers involved. And so the landscape's gotten tougher, harder for consumers, and then we've got a challenging market. So, it is time to keep fighting for people in this industry for sure. And I'm going to do my part, and I know you will as well. As we talk about this, what are your predictions for 2025? Give us give us your best predictions if we were backing the horse in the race. Give us your numbers. The whole time we're hoping for maybe we get a big blast of wind behind us and we go crazy. That would be super. But let's talk about your projections for next year.
So I don't see economic recession. It will be continuing job gains based on how the stock market has reacted regarding the election outcome. So given that business confidence has been raised, they can expand more, hire more people. Anytime there's job growth, that's very positive for housing market. Now, last year, rising mortgage rate was not good, but in 2025, we are going to have decrease in mortgage rate. Not a significant decrease, but still some decrease in mortgage rate. So that will help on the affordability front. And the key, more inventory, something that the realtors were really facing challenges, more inventory. You know, I have to admire the realtor community. They're entrepreneurs, whether they're trying to open up a small restaurant, other small business, entrepreneurs always seem to adapt to new rules, good or bad. If the rules are there, they somehow adjust and adapt to it. I would agree with your assessment right now. You know, some of the new rules are not consumer friendly nor business friendly, but the rules are what it is. And the entrepreneurs always adapt to it. And I think they can anticipate essentially roughly 10% growth in home sales this year, another similar increase in 2026. You know, home sales were little above 5 million pre-COVID. We're going to get there in a couple of years, but I will not be surprised if we reach it much sooner, say within 18 months time span. But mortgage rate, again, let's not try to anticipate 3, 4, or 5% mortgage rate. New normal would be around 6%.
Yeah, and obviously, look, it's getting conditioned. You know, when the rates went from 3% to 7%, it was a shock to the market. I remember we were going along with about 15,000 canceled transactions a month, and then the rates went up, and all of a sudden we hit 60,000 because it was such a shock to the market in July of 2023. The truth of the matter is rates then went up to 8%. And now what happens is and again, it's just how human beings are. All of a sudden you hear 6%. And I personally think we're gonna have months it's gonna drop down into 5.8 and 5.9 and then bounce to 6.1, and it's gonna be like that. And you know, you wanna have your finger on the pulse with your client because there's gonna be these, you know, little variations that drop, and all of a sudden psychologically somebody gets a loan at 5.99% or 5.9% when they had heard of 8, when they were conditioned to 7.25. That does feel like a deal. And I think most people reasonably understand the days of the 2 and 3% is kind of over. And so that was, you know, artificially created. And I just think the market's gotten conditioned to this 7% plus, that when they get something in the low 6s or 6, or even if it dips just below, it's going to feel like a deal. It's going to feel better as opposed to the other shock. And just like we saw transactions go the other way, I think we might see some improvement. And so stable economy. Obviously, we need to cut the debt. We need to make it less attractive to buy government treasuries. And ultimately, we get people back in the game and buying more homes. And like you say, you know, within 2 years, how great would it be? 5 million transactions a year, I'd be a happy camper. I think most people would go, you know, the businesses, the mortgages, everybody can live in that environment. It's a solid number of transactions. So again, from your lips to God's ears, the sooner we can get there, the better. Let me ask you this, Lawrence. You have a great heart for the people in the real estate industry, as I do. You know, what's your best advice? So many people, they've fought through this, and they've gone through recessions in 2007, 8, and 9, and 10, and they've bounced back, and they've had COVID and first of all, we were not going to be allowed to show homes, and then we became essential, and then we had the sanitized, unbelievably clean homes and selling homes on FaceTime and this and that and the other, and then the market went raging hot, and all the agents were exhausted, and then the rates came, they put the screech on the rates. It's been a roller coaster for people, and some good agents have decided to retire, some have moved on. A lot of agents didn't sell a home last year. What's your best advice to the real estate agents and how to really prosper and do well in this business?
It's an entrepreneurial field, which means that some people do very well, while other people give it their best try, but it wasn't their best fit. I mean, I admire their entrepreneurship. So in any given year, we have about 200,000 new realtors trying out, and then we have about 200,000 who give it a try and they drop out of the profession. It's showing the competitiveness of the industry. But we always know that top 20% of the realtors always do very well. They go consistently into the six-figure gross commission income. And the survey result from consumers, 90% of recent home buyers and recent home sellers said they essentially love their realtors. Maybe not, that's not the right word, but say recommending their friends, family members to their realtor because of the exceptional service they have received. And furthermore, all the past clients, most of the past clients, they have seen substantial wealth build up from home ownership. So they're very pleased with the outcome. We just need more Americans to participate in this wealth accumulating home ownership opportunities. And I think the realtors will find a way to get more first-time buyers into the market.
You bet. Well, Lawrence, we appreciate you very much. We thank you for your contribution to our industry, to all that you do and all that you've been to this business. We appreciate your friendship here at Buffini Company. You and your team have done such a great job with your research, with your data collection, and then feeding that to us throughout the year. And then we're able to share that with the extended community that we serve, who then in turn send it to millions and millions of people's homes. So we thank you for your partnership, and you appreciate all you do to help people in the real estate space lives better, to equip them. And also in this broadcast, as we try to help people understand what the market is and help them psychologically prepare for the year to come. So we thank you for that. I wish you a Merry Christmas, and thanks for always being a good friend to what we do here at Bold Predictions.
Yeah, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everyone.
Always a pleasure to be joined by Lawrence. And in addition to his bold predictions, I'll share mine with you for next year. Again, we might run into a heater. There's definitely some optimistic things on the forefront of what's out there in the marketplace. I think having a decisive election one way or the other is a very helpful thing for the country. So now we know what the fiscal policies are going to be. We know what the international policies are going to be. So we can project pretty well knowing, okay, this is what's going to happen. I think we'll come in right around 4.5 million transactions. Lawrence talked about a 10% increase. My projection was 9, so we'll split the difference. And if we finish the year at 4.1 million transactions, we're looking at an extra 400,000 transactions next year. A little bit better, a little bit more inventory, so some green shoots. Lawrence talked about a couple 100,000 people leave the industry next year. I think he's low. He has to be low because he represents the National Association of Realtors. I think you're looking at a minimum of 300,000 less members next year. I'll show you why in a moment. I think the interest rates are going to vacillate between 5.8 and 6.2. Now, here's a little example, and I was coaching up some young people I'm helping in their life, and they just kind of sat on my advice, and I said, hey, get yourself ready. There's a couple of changes happening. There was a lot of precursor going on with what the Fed was going to do, and it had an impact on the market. And I said, get your stuff together, get your paperwork together, get yourself fully qualified. I think you could pick up a low rate. And the rate actually dipped to 5.8%. Well, they're young folks. They went out and bought a Tesla. They sat on the advice, and now they just closed at 7. And so what I'm going to say is you want to have your buyers ready to go and qualified early. There will be, as what I think we'll see is a gradual drop down in rates next year, but there's going to be dips and valleys, and it's going to bob up and down. There's still some economic headwinds, and so you're going to see this, especially in the second part of the year, where you're going to see rates maybe one day at 6.2 and the next day at 5.9, and so you're going to see that. And again, you need to have your people ready to go, prepped and ready, and hey, we're going to lock in these rates and get real serious and make it happen. And so you'll be a hero if you have your people prepped and ready to go and they take advantage, okay? In the real estate business itself, teams are going to continue to be a significant part of the industry. It is still and has been for the last few years the largest, fastest growing component of real estate. What we're seeing is younger millennials and older Gen Zs that are entering the real estate space. They're even getting real estate degrees, but they're joining real estate teams, and that's where they want to go. And they like the idea of that. It has what we're seeing in all the demographic research is that a lot of younger folks are a little more risk adverse. The team often provides a lead opportunity, a training opportunity. They want to be a part of something, and also a lot of younger folks are very much connected to the lifestyle concept, and they're like, hey, I don't want to work every weekend or every day every weekend. And so teams are going to continue to be the future direction of real estate, and that is going to continue on, and I see that growing very strongly in the new year. It's why we have built so much support in our coaching, in our leadership coaching for teams, because teams continue to grow and be the fastest growing. In fact, in our business in 2024, our leadership coaching is the strongest growing element of everything we've done. So the bottom line is the gap between the haves and the have-nots is going to continue to increase, both between realtors and in clientele to some degree as well. Lawrence talked about the top 20%. I'm just going to challenge all of you today. What is it going to take for you to get in the top 20? Because if you're not in the top 20, you're going to struggle. And we know the 80-20 rule. Again, a lot of our clients had record years. And so, if one of my kids told me a long time ago, hey, Dad, C's get degrees. And that's a true statement. You can get C's in school and pass. You can get C in college and pass. You can have a C in health and be okay. You can get a C. You cannot be a C player in the real estate space. That means pain and poverty. It means stress and anxiety. Here's some stats for you. 47% of all agents in the National Association of Realtors sold 0 homes last year. That's 700,000 real estate agents. That is just not a good way to go. And it's not good for the consumer. It's also not good for the whole industry. How do you differentiate yourself from someone who's not even getting it done, from someone who's not selling any houses? It's very important. Another report showed that only 73% of realtors were certain they'd be in the business over the next 2 years. Now, Zig Ziglar used to joke, he's about as committed as a kamikaze pilot on his 27th mission. How can you ask buyers and sellers to be committed to you if you're not committed? And if you're not really committed, you're never really going to put it all in. You're never really going to put it on the line. You're never really going to go for it. You're just going through the motions. Well, maybe, imagine going down the aisle. Well, let's see how this works out. That's probably not the greatest marriage ceremony in history. It's supposed to be till death do us part, right? That's supposed to be the line in the sand we're drawn. So where are you at? I mentioned about transactions closing, and this is big. I just tell you, I will say this, and I say this with no joy. We have the most unskilled real estate agents running around of all time. And there's reasons for it, not bad people. We had an 11-year run-up in prices. We've had a 14-year shortage of inventory, and you get into a certain mode. And anybody who got in the business the last decade, okay, I got a listing. I put it on the market. I got 28 offers this weekend. We'll be reporting back to those offers on Tuesday and picking the best one. You get into a certain habit. And now all of a sudden things are changing. Now all of a sudden the listing isn't selling in 2 weeks and 3 weeks and those kinds of things. I mentioned to Lawrence, we chick along at about 15,000 transactions a month would cancel. Willing buyer, willing seller, they go into escrow, 15,000 of those deals would fall apart on average. And I've often said 90% of those reasons is the real estate agent. Maybe you didn't get the client pre-qualified before you wrote the offer. The expectations weren't set. The bottom line is good professional agents are able to hold deals together. In July of 2023, when the rates went from 2.9 to 7.2 in 1 month, we went from 15,000 transactions canceling to 60,000. And the 63 was the first, and then it went to 60, and then went down and down and down. Well, let me show you this year. In July of 2024, We had 60,000 transactions that fell out of contract. And you know what happened? Nothing. There was no difference in the market in June to July. Zero. There were no new wars. Same thing was going on. There was nothing that happened. We just have more and more skittish buyers, more and more skittish sellers, and in my opinion, more and more untrained, unskilled people in the space. August was 59,000, September was 54,000, October is 53,000, so we're starting to see it reduced. And I think it'll still continue to come down. But when you have a willing buyer and a willing seller and that deal falls apart, let me tell you, everybody gets wounded by that process. We've got to get on the program. Now, in August 19th of this year, we launched in real time, the minute the laws changed in regards to how buyer representation was going to happen in real estate, we launched the CFSP, the Certified Full Service Professional Training Program, and we've built it kind of month by month since then. And we had, almost 10,000 early adopters who jumped in and watched me record these things real time. And it's about being a full service professional. I love the quote from Reddit there. He says, if you think it's expensive to hire a professional to do the job, wait until you hire an amateur. And that's what those tens of thousands of transactions canceling mean. So why did we build this? I mentioned 11-year run-up in prices. A certain type of skills get developed. 14-year shortage of inventory. A certain mindset gets developed. The lawsuits against the industry, okay, which were just asinine, okay, asinine, was an absolute shakedown for the lawyers. $800 million in legal fees, somewhere between $28 to $50 got paid to the class, a piece. Okay, it was nothing more than a lawyer shakedown, and that happens from time to time. And you can argue all the reasons why and who and what. It doesn't matter. The game has been changed. Large companies and the National Association of Realtors were gutted by losing 40% of their available capital. So imagine you have a down market, the worst market since 1995, and then you lose 40% of your available capital. So real estate companies, the National Association of Realtors, mid-sized companies, it's been a brutal process. And that's why our organization, all these major companies are banging on our door saying, we're having to cut back our services, cut back, can you help? We're having to cut back here, can you help? And yeah, great, we appreciate being of value to the industry and to these organizations, but it makes for a tough sailing. And it really means, I'm going to say, if you're working for a large company, mid-sized company, is you need to have a little grace for those organizations. If you're ticked off at the National Association of Realtors, you might want to have a little grace for those guys. We have a brand new set of applications for real estate that don't necessarily benefit the consumer and are difficult to explain. So, what did we do? We built the CFSP. If you're new to this, here's what it is. It's an online training and certification program that helps agents define themselves as full service professionals. That's it. And that's all I'm interested in training. That's all I'm interested in helping is people who are saying, no, this is my business, this is my career, and I want to be a full service pro, as opposed to the discounted brokerages and the cafeteria real estate models that are being presented. One of the great ironies is one of the main legal firms that brought the initial lawsuit against the industry has now also launched their own cafeteria real estate model where they have a pay-to-play fee service for handling real estate transactions. I might add that their fees are non-negotiable, which was the basis for the whole lawsuit. So, irony, apparently. What it does for you, this CFSP certification, well, it helps real estate agents provide full professional services and charge appropriate professional fees. It's a hard business. You need to be able to articulate and communicate your value. Here's what I charge. And there's lots of choice in the marketplace, lots of choice. You can pay any kind of fee for any kind of service, but you have to be able to define yours. And then lastly, what it does for the customer. Nobody's talking about the customer, nobody. But it has to be about the consumer at the end of the day. So what does it do for them? Well, we want to help people like you, pros like you, go beyond your clients' expectations and deliver an industry-leading experience that really wows your clients. That's it. That's what we're after. And so we built these modules out. The last module I'm recording next week. And so we did the full service professional, where we really laid the groundwork on what it takes to be a pro, a new listing presentation, a new buyer presentation, all the objections that now are handled and need to be handled based on the new rules of real estate. We did an interview with John Acuff, brilliant, best-selling author, wrote a book called Soundtracks. And that's basically the stories that sellers tell themselves, the stories that buyers tell themselves, the stories that agents tell themselves, and how to break through that. Really a mindset piece. We talked about with Unreasonable Hospitality, great guy, Will Guidara, wrote this best-selling book. He built the #1 restaurant in the world. And he takes people from, hey, here's what service is, to here's what hospitality is. And to really set yourself apart. And what does it mean? And a bunch of how-tos on how to really provide this wow service. And wow services mean you're not just being a pro, you're gonna earn these people's referrals and trust. And then we had one of my favorite people, he's one of the most creative people in the world, he's Canadian, Ron Tite, and he talked about how to build out a unique selling proposition as part of your brand. Like, what separates you from these other agents? Like, what do you do differently? Why is it in my best interest? Why do I need a full service pro? Why will I pay these appropriate professional fees? What's the difference? Here's what the market does, here's what I do. And then how to communicate it, how to articulate it, and ultimately how to make it part of your brand. And then this last piece to the puzzle is the wow customer experience, which I'll record here next week, and really is how to sustain a protracted level of professionalism with your existing, future, and past clients so that you actually are just the realtor of choice in your community. You're the pro, people know you're the pro, you offer this level of service, and you charge this level of fee. And so we've had, again, thousands of early adopters. As of December 17th, the full course goes live. So it's kind of like it's actually getting launched December 18th. And what happens is you're able to go through these programs. There's a quiz that you take because we want to certify you. And so we want you to know that you're learning this, you're applying this. And then when you take the test, you get access to all, not only of the resources for your marketing, for your business cards, the writers, for your real estate signs, that you're a certified full-service professional. And when you abide by these practices, you're going to rock and roll. That's the bottom line. We've made it super inexpensive. We've invested millions of dollars into this program on your behalf. But we're able to do this stuff because we're able to do it at scale. So you get the video modules, the marketing suite, you know, how to market to people who are potential buyers, potential sellers, social media, the whole thing is all laid in here. The actual buyer presentations and seller presentations for the world we live in today. The dialogues and the objection handling, we've had rave reviews on that. And then you get your own CFSP designation, which, you know, in the year 2025, you will be able to be, you are certified as a full service professional. And we're going to continue to provide great value. We have a whole bunch of cool modules we're working on to enhance the experience even next year, whether it be dealing with AI, advanced customer service dynamics, whole bunch of cool content coming your way. It's $395 to become a certified full-service professional and break away from the 80% that are struggling. For those Buffini members who haven't yet registered for this program, it's $295. So go to buffini.com/CFSP to find out all about that program. We're very excited. It's already having phenomenal results for people. People are able to go on listings, appointments, and beat out their competition. Because their competition is fumbling around with this stuff, and they've got the new Prezo for the new market in a new way. Another thing I want to let people know is we have a brand new, people have known me for almost 30 years now. I've been out on the road doing seminars. We've presented to over 3 million people in our live events. And we have a brand new type of program coming in the new year. And we're going to help you kickstart your year. So these are Buffini Coaching live events. The first one is January 16th. So if you want to get off to a great start, and what's different about this is I'll have a few people in a live audience with me in the studio, but I'm going to have a wall of screens. I'll be able to see your face. You'll be able to ask me and our guests questions. It's a phenomenal technology, one we've never used before. And so we're bringing in Chris Voss. And Chris Voss, he was the lead hostage negotiator for the FBI. He wrote the best-selling book, Never Split the Difference. And I'm going to share with you content. Hey, here's how to get off to a great year. Chris is coming in, and Chris actually has written books specifically for the real estate business. He's going to show you how to negotiate through the process. And it's funny, just this weekend, I was playing golf with a buddy of mine. He had to get off the golf course because his first time buying son and his wife, they were having a little meltdown because they were in negotiation for their first home. And he's a 30-year-old guy, and he's got a family, and it's just going sideways. And the negotiation was being poorly handled to the point he has to get off the golf cart, grab his bag, and head back to the clubhouse to try to save a deal because the realtors weren't saving it. So everything's a negotiation now. Not just the purchase contract, not just the listing contract. Everything's a negotiation at every hand's turn because people are stressed out. So that's why we're bringing in Chris Voss. So for anyone who registers for the CFSP program, the first 100 people who do that are actually going to get a ticket to the Kickstart event, which launches January 16th. So for the first 100, you get a ticket to next year's Kickstart. We're going to get you rocking and rolling. We're going to get you again down the path with your business plan for 2025. It's $195 to join, and then $95 for our members. So there you go, a couple of good ways to start your year. Bottom line is this. Real estate's a fantastic profession. I've loved it my whole adult life. I got into the real estate business when I was 19 years old. I'm 57 now. Real estate been very, very good to me. I love the people of real estate. I love the entrepreneurial aspect of it. I love the people who bet on themselves. I love the people buying and selling homes. I love handing a set of keys to a buyer who never thought they'd own a home. I love people when they had kids and all of a sudden moving them up into the next house. I loved helping people retire well and take care of their family and then move to somewhere kind of fun that they've always wanted to live, or live next to their kids and grandkids. Or I've seen people who bought the multi-generational home and it became the compound. It's just a great part of life, and it's been a great part of my life for 39 years now, 38 years. And so what I want to say to all of you today is, if you've fought through this year, if you've, just done your best, it's been a very challenging year, lowest sales since 1995, 2 years in a row. We're going to see a little uptick in sales. We're going to see a little downturn in rates. There is pent-up demand ready to go. And for you personally, if you will make the commitment to work on yourself harder than you work on your real estate business, you can go from making a living to making a fortune. And that's ultimately the mindset I want you to have. I'd love you to make a commitment today in having listened to me and listen to Dr. Yun. I'm going to be in that top 20%. That top 20% does not share characteristics of a certain IQ, a certain demographic of where they came from, financially, racially, spiritually, nothing. There's no connective tissue except a desire to be successful and a willingness to grow. And if you have a desire to be successful and a willingness to grow, the resources are out there for you to be successful in this business. It's a great business. It's a life-changing business for our customers, and it can be a life-changing business for you. And that's my hope and prayer for all of you. I'd love you to join me on the journey and get yourself certified to be a pro. I'd love you to join me in the new year as we kickstart with this brand new virtual event that's going to absolutely light up the real estate business. I'd love you to join me then. I wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, the best of a new year, and I'm praying for all of us that 2025 will be our best year ever. Thanks for joining me again on this edition, our 17th of our Bold Predictions.